As humans, we're naturally driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. When I was looking to hire someone, it was so slow and overwhelming. I wish I had used Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, I have another special treat for you here in this episode. I don't do a lot of these, you've probably noticed, because I have worked with countless women in my End the Cycle program and in my one-on-one coaching over the years. But sometimes I ask particular women to come on to share their stories who are, number one, willing. They have to be willing. Some women don't want their story being shared on a public platform, which is totally understandable. And then some women are really open to sharing if it can benefit another woman who is where they once were. And so that's what we're doing today on this episode. You're going to learn some signs to watch out for in your kids, to know how they're doing, some signs in yourself to know how you're doing, because as the relationship progresses and as things get worse, you start to decline and you will see signs in your children as well. So this is a really important part of this conversation that we're talking about in this, amongst other things. So I'm going to play that interview for you right now. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and former therapist with a background in counseling psychology. This podcast is for strong, high-achieving women who want more in their lives and relationships, who are ready to rise to the next level of growth, healing, and evolution. Nothing changes until you change. And when you change, everything else changes around you as a result. If you're done with feeling powerless within the chaotic and toxic dynamics in your relationship and don't even know where to begin with making changes, I've got you covered. I know you've tried everything, including counseling, watching hours of videos, and reading stacks of books on narcissism, and find that all it does is leave you feeling even more stuck and in the same place. None of these things work when you're living with a narcissistic spouse because the root causes of the symptoms are not being addressed. As with physical health, there is an emotional, physical, spiritual, and psychological component to healing and overcoming the problematic symptoms and pain you're facing every day in your life and relationship. If you're ready for a direct, no fluff, no nonsense approach to take you into your personal power and take back your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to this episode, ladies. Today I have a special treat for you. I have a former client and amazing soul here to share her journey through what she has been through from the point that we started working together when we met to where she is now, and everything in between. And I'm so excited to dive into this because I was really inspired by guiding her through this, but just seeing she had to go through the trenches on her own. Even if she had the support, she still had to go through that really, really difficult stuff. And I asked her to come on to share some of her experience and wisdom. And I'm so excited to dive in. So thank you so much, Katherine, for being here.
My pleasure to be here.
So I remember the day that we first talked, because you said when we were chatting, and I referred to this in other places as well, where you said, if I don't get out of here, you said, I'm going to die if I don't leave.
Yeah, absolutely. It was that dire for sure, that my body, I had exhausted my hope bucket, which seemed to ever refill for years and years and years. And I was just like the walking dead. So that's true.
Yeah. And that was memorable for me just to hear it said that way. But I'm almost positive that there are so many women that feel that same way, and they start to actually have dark thoughts, right? And you can start having those really dark thoughts because you don't see your way out. So tell me a little bit about where you were at that point when we first met, if you can go back there and just a quick brief, where were you at that point?
Yeah, I'm sort of terrible at linear memory, but I definitely remember speaking to you from a parking lot in my car, which is where was the only kind of shred of space in the world left for me, or those little moments I could steal away in the car and just kind of an SOS. I was, 23 years into an extremely, extremely difficult relationship. We were not married, but with a young child. And I was just trying to find a way out, And I just couldn't do it. And you were asking women about why they were reluctant to sign up for your program. You were doing some research. And I remember really clearly saying, I don't want to sign up because I'm afraid I won't follow through. I won't be able to leave.
Right. Yeah. Because we weren't even we weren't on a call like where you were reaching out to work with me. I was just trying to get some like information on like what women were struggling with. And then that's sort of what evolved out of our conversation. So yeah. And so when we decided to work together, things started to move really quickly for you. Do you care to share a little bit about like that, how quickly it sort of shifted and where things went from there?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like reflecting on a car accident in that it's so intense, and it's just like not non-linear. But yeah, I very quickly just completely jumped out of a plane. Decisions needed to be made. Leases were ending, kids' school was starting, and just the perfect storm of everything bubbling up at the same time just forced the issue. And I could not step one foot forward into more lying to myself. I was just it was impossible. And I'm really, really good at that. And I couldn't even do it anymore. So extremely quickly, I found myself jumping out of a plane, having no idea where it was landing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like all of our sessions were basically in your car where you were, that's exactly what it's like your lifeline in your car of like just trying to get some grounding in the midst of everything everything literally was coming apart at the same time for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was as terrifying or even more terrifying than all the years that I put it off and procrastinated it, or thought I could contend with it. It was honestly even worse than I imagined. I never doubted myself for doing it. Like, I didn't miss him, because I actually knew I was done after 23 years. That was the one thing I knew. But
yeah. And I think it's really important, because this is what we were just chatting about when I interviewed Autumn a couple of episodes back. And it's like, let's talk about like the real and the raw. It's not all roses. It's
Mhm.
going to be one of the hardest things you will ever have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But it's kind of like there's a duality because there's such a gain simultaneously. It's like almost in equal measure to the misery, which is I remember telling a friend before I left, I have to choose between sucky or sucky with a little bit of hope. And I was like, well, I'm going to choose sucky with a little bit of hope. So that has proven to be the correct decision because, now the littlest things, like even just having like coffee in the morning without fear or dread, is magnificent. Or just coming home after work and being like, oh my gosh, like I get to like play music and do what I want to do, is like exhilarating. And I'm still kind of working through that, but even more than that is just having some integrity, like to myself, because I had really lost that. And that was the worst thing of anything is, yeah.
Yeah, you completely lose your sense of self, what you love, like just the simplest things, like you said, getting up in the morning, it's peaceful. You don't have to worry about any type of conflict going on or somebody else's mood. So that's a good segue because we kind of showcased where you were. And I know we're putting this in a nutshell, like 21 years of this. Every woman that's been
Yeah.
through this knows that this is like, it's a complex thing to unwind from. So for you to get to that breaking point, it's taken 21 years of trying every literal thing under the sun. So,
Yeah.
so now what I'm really excited about, because it's kind of like our catch up session too, because I haven't
Yeah.
chatted with you in so long. Like,
Yeah.
how are you now? Like, let's talk about what's improved, where you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it.
Yeah. Well, you're catching me at a particularly bad and ugly moment. I definitely feel like I'm on the hero's, whatever you call it, path or journey. It is so far from over as far as like legal and housing and money and all of the things, and the abuse and mind fucking and shenanigans are unrelenting. Nothing is different except I don't have to live with him. Um, and that's really been a bummer to experience. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's shocking that I even made it as long as I did because it's so intense. So it has me off kilter. So many things are just unresolved. That's where I am. Just sharing a young child really complicates things, incredibly so. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're not alone in that. So many women that have been in this that are on the other side, they still feel like they're in it. And I always say there's so much you can do to protect your peace as much as possible with boundaries and really minimizing the contact you have with them to keep it just about those logistics. But they do find a way to kind of creep in and mess with you in those negotiations. And these divorces from these types are always dragged on because they're just continually trying to mess with everything. So how have you been doing in all this? So it sounds like, yeah, I mean, how many months has it been now since we last worked together? I don't even remember. It's been a few, right?
I think it was the end of September that
Was
it
it?
ended. So about 5 months.
Okay. So so this is what's really cool is you're still really new. This is still really fresh, believe it or
Yeah.
not. So if you feel like you should be further along, I mean, this is still fresh. Like it takes 2 years, I think, to finally feel like, okay, I think I've got some equilibrium.
That's helpful
Um,
to that's helpful to know.
but the thing is, it gets better because, like you said, you have those pockets of time to just breathe and do what you want. You don't have to deal with him on a daily basis necessarily, right? So how do
Yeah.
you feel differently?
Um, I've definitely been feeling like, oh, that's who I am. Like even just like dancing with my son to a silly song. I mean, those are things that did not live in our home. Or if they did, it was always an issue for some reason. Like he was like jealous or, it's just always some crap that just made everything miserable. So feeling like myself again and having like my son see that part of me and who I really am is just absolutely worth every single bit of misery that I went through. And I do feel that.
Are you ready to take action on your separation and divorce? Your Empowered Divorce Coaching is for successful career and entrepreneurial women who are ready to take action toward freeing themselves from the grip of toxic narcissistic abuse, or for those who have recently left and are still struggling to break free from the continued manipulation and control of their ex. If you're struggling with how to parent with your ex or don't know how to cut things off so you can finally heal, apply to become a client of my therapeutic coaching program. It starts with a free 15-minute chat so I can get an idea of where you're at, where you're making mistakes, and to determine how I can best support you to move forward. To book that 15-minute call, head to the link in the show notes. Back to the episode.
If I can stick with it, like that's the road that I'll walk, and that will just continue to grow. And that's who my son will know, is someone who's not, crying in the bathroom, but someone who's like dancing with him in the kitchen and feeling free. And that's worth all of, the logistics will land somewhere eventually. And it's a total pain in the butt. But the other part is kind of what I'll remember, when I'm 100 years old, and what he'll remember when he's 100 years old, hopefully, how it felt to be together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You're not the first person that I've heard say, like, when they're not around, you turn up the music and you're dancing. Like, what is with that? There's something about these relationships that just, like, we shrink into this little tiny, tiny version of ourselves. And then it's like this blooming process that happens, I think, once you're away from that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely was like, oh, I can do what I want in the morning. Like I can wake up and do a meditation or a stretch like this. I'm still kind of even tiptoeing into it, because for one, I have the energy to do it and the peace of mind to do it and the space to do it. All of things I never had before. So I'm still like, can I do this? Like I have PTSD.
Yeah, you're still feeling like you are being judged by this almighty God that
Yeah. And I think part of it has to do with being in the same apartment where we live together. I have a lot of like, is he walking up the stairs right now, or is he going to come home from work moments? Which I don't have that in other places. So I would like to move one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that will fade too, because it's still fresh, right? A lot of this stuff is just, you've got to work it through. It is the PTSD and the flashbacks and the panic, or, those intrusive thoughts or things like that, and memories just kind of popping in.
Yeah.
So how is your son doing? What have you noticed with that? Because I know there's a lot of moms that stay because they're worried about their kids, worried about how the kids will fare on the other side. Like, how is he doing?
I think because our schedule is not set yet between me and his dad, it's a bumpy ride. And unfortunately, it's in the hands of the court right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's not seeing him as much as he would like. My son is not seeing his dad as much as he would like. It's extremely minimal. I would even like them to spend more time together. But when I offer it, his dad won't accept it. And it's like some kind of trick that he's using as leverage to make our son miss him more. So I'm like, why don't you want to like spend the whole weekend together? I don't understand. He's like, we have an order from the judge. I'm like, I know, but he misses you, and I think you should spend time together. He's like, no. So right now our son, who's 5, is like, grown-ups have bad ideas. I don't believe you, and it's pretty heartbreaking. But it's kind of a good example of like the mind fucking, where I'm like, I'm offering you more time, and he's telling our son, your mom won't let me be with you.
Wow.
So it's really like hard.
Yeah.
It's not what normal people do.
No, it is bizarre. And I've heard this so much from women about that, where you think that they're going to do the right thing as a father, but they completely just like pull the rug out, and you're just like, wow, that's really who you are. Like you don't even, you don't care to work with me for the good of the kids, and they don't. And that's, it's shocking because they come across as they're all for the kids, right?
Yeah.
But when it all crumbles, then you really see the truth.
Yeah. But on a more uplifting note, as far as how my son is doing, when his dad was still living with us, he was biting his nails. He would never want me like really biting his nails. He was keeping his hands in little fists. He never wanted to be alone with his dad. He didn't want me to ever leave the house. It had accelerated to that. It wasn't always like that, but in the final months. And every time now that I like have to cut his nails, I'm so happy because he is not living in that anxiety in that environment. And he
Wow.
has like, when we changed the house around, I was like, let's just make our living room to an art studio. Let's do whatever we want. Let's let's have
That
like
is beautiful.
let's get a disco ball and a trampoline and like have some fun, so it's like, this is like our house. Let's do what we want to do. And like, I didn't spend money, just change the things I already had around and try to just change the vibe. So
That's really good. And that's the thing, you're going to start building more memories in the house that are happier memories. And that is like, that's wow, because I mean, I do coach a lot of women who have kids and the kids are deteriorating. They're showing signs of trauma and like awful, scary stuff. And it's hard, even if you're, someone like me explaining this is because of what's going on in the house. Like when you
mhm,
leave, this stuff will likely resolve itself because
mhm.
the kids are the barometer for what's going on. They're picking it all up. And for a little 5-year-old to be biting his nails like that, that's pretty big.
Yeah, and he for like 2 months, um, the first 2 months his dad was not in the house. He didn't ask for him once, and he was always like, "No, Dada." Like he was still mad at his dad because they had such a hot and cold relationship. But now all of the Disney dad is going strong. But my hope is that their relationship will be better in the long run because of this. And I it's out of my control, but I truly hope that will be the case because I want that for him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you said the exact thing there. You don't have control over what he chooses to do, but it sounds to me like you're doing a lot to create a sacred, healing, calm space for you and him in your home. And I think that's beautiful. So where you are now, what feels like it's more possible for you to do now that you are out of that entanglement? You're still dealing with some of the logistics and you will be probably for a while. But
Yeah,
what's possible now for you now that you're not in that daily?
yeah. Oh, so many things. I mean, I mean, like meeting a friend, talking on the phone. I mean, from the simplest, from this, sleeping through the night, like from the simplest things that people just do, all the way to I want to paint again. I want to go on a trip. I want to, like just live. It's not even much more than that. Like, I just want to improve my space and just be a part of life. I don't have like a big, list of demands other than I just want to be a part of it. And I really was just like gonna die for like I said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you were in like a really, really tough spot. What would you say, having the coaching support and the Voxer support, how do you think that played a role? Like you're the one that had to do all the hard work, but
Yeah.
how do you feel like having the coaching and that lifeline of support helped you to move through that?
Um, it was a really big deal. I feel like so few people, not by any fault of their own, they're lucky not to know about this stuff, like, or have had to have navigate this stuff, the best intentioned friends and, family members, they just don't understand. And for someone like me who's so easily influenced, already confused, doubting myself, that could really set me back, like, oh, well, my friend and her husband did XYZ and, I think she's great. So, like, why aren't I more like her? All that kind of stuff could just mess me up. And especially when someone's already undermining my thinking, for so many years. So just having you as a constant, because I would constantly be like, am I this? Is this the right way? Am I off the track? Is this the track? And like, you're like, I remember once you wrote me, you have done the right thing. And that one stuck. I was like, I just, a lot of people would not think I have done the right thing, but I had done the right thing. But it was the ugliest thing in that I could imagine. Was like emotionally violent and unlike me in every single way, but
Yeah.
it was the right thing. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
really,
And I think, to what you're saying there, that's the thing when we're in these situations, we become conditioned to think us standing up for ourselves and saying no more and drawing lines and letting them have repercussions due to their own behavior. We think that that's being a bitch or being mean, or vindictive, and we're not like that. So it shakes us up in that way of like, I'm not like this. I'm not vindictive. I don't want anyone else to suffer. But at the same time, we're allowing ourselves to suffer with whatever it is that they're doing. Like this is a common thing, right? So I remember that, and for you it was just a lot of like, you just needed the check-ins and the check of like, no, keep going, you didn't do anything wrong.
yeah. And also for every time that you were able to tell me like, oh, that's really common, or they always say that, was like, okay, like I'm not like the only woman in the world who has dealt with this nonsense and insanity. And there's a pattern, and a lot of it is like, not all of it, but much of it is like the Emperor's New Clothes or the Wizard of Oz or whatever. Like it's a lot of just big bluster. Um, and I'm still dealing with that in mediation, a lot of bluster, and it's scary, but having someone who, can say, just put one foot in front of the other, just keep going. It's really
Yeah. And
helpful.
I do find myself saying that a lot with women, is just simply like, this is common, because I've worked with enough women and
Yeah.
experienced it myself to be able to go like, nope, that's happened to this many other women. Like I hear, so then it kind of normalizes it.
Yeah, that's like gold, honestly. Because like who is that normal to? You know, how can we
Only
find
if
each
you've
other?
lived it. Only if you've
Yeah,
lived it.
it's not normal.
Well, it's more just what I see in women, that I see the patterns of what I see happens to them. And it's this, like you said, wondering if you're doing the right thing by putting yourself first and doing what you need to do to protect yourself and your kid. And then you feel bad for them because they're so good at playing the victim and not taking any ownership and putting the blame on you, that you think you're doing something wrong by holding them accountable or doing what you need to
Mhm.
do for yourself.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And even more complicated is like being the victim and the hero simultaneously.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like I mean, I feel like I'm in a game of like chess or something really harder than chess, and I'm terrible at chess and strategy and deviousness, and I'm just like so simple, like, oh, like let's just hold hands and walk across the street, and I'm not in that situation. That's how I got into this mess. So I'm really happy to go through like trial by fire and grow those muscles that were my blind spot, and it is like really hard.
It is. It's relearning ways of seeing yourself, right? And making sure we're not seeing ourselves as a victim, right? Because if we do, then we're likely to attract someone that is going to victimize us. We have to see ourselves differently. And that takes time. It takes a lot of self-awareness. But, and I always say, leaving is just the beginning. So this is kind of a testament to that. Like getting
Yeah,
out is, like you said, brutal, hard. You went through that, and now it's not all roses, but there's beauty in it, what I'm hearing you say, and there's relief in that. Um, and it sounds like you and your son are healing, and there's some really good positive things that have come from it.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a bright road ahead, and there was a dead end ahead before. And I guess I just also want to say to, if there's anyone out there, like I was 100% sure that I could never do it. Like I thought I could never get out. Like I had tried and failed so many times that, like, to all my friends and family, I was the biggest eye roll. I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. You've been saying that forever. And so I was so isolated, like nobody would even take me seriously if I told them like he chased me or he did this horrible thing. Like I just stopped telling anyone. Um, and it was horrible. So the fact that I actually did it is just like the sky is green. But I did do it. I don't miss him. I'm not jealous. He could do whatever in the heck he wants. I don't want to see him. I don't want to be near him. And I never ever thought that was like ever going to be possible. So the sky can be green.
That's amazing. That is amazing because I do remember you saying that now where you're like, I'm afraid to, sign on with you because I'm afraid it's going to be another failure. And
Yes.
I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said something to the degree of like, what if it won't, what if this is your key? Like, what if it's not this time? Because have you ever had the right support? And I think you said no.
Had it. No.
Yeah. And it is lonely because everybody around you that's not experiencing that, they have no clue. Even therapists, like no clue. You have no clue unless you've lived it. And so for me, I feel like I have this superpower of just having experienced it myself. But then I've also seen patterns of women over the last 6 years working with them in these relationships to be able to just lead you through it so that you get the clarity that you're not crazy and know you're not overreacting and you are doing the right thing. And they've never been told that before.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's true. I honestly don't think I would have been able to do it and to get through it. I just remember thinking, okay, it's whenever it was July now, August. I just remember thinking by the end of September, I'm going to be somewhere. I don't know where, but I'm still going to be with Leanne. So I'm good.
Well, I am very happy that you were able to do it, to get out, because now you truly can heal, right? You have to, and there is boundaries around, how much access you give them to you, right? You don't have to, I just did a post on Instagram. You don't have to answer everything and have, a response to everything, right?
Yeah.
When they're trying to get one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to like wait a few days, it's like not create that. And then like if I have to, or I save, if I have to respond to an email, I save the draft. I write whatever's on my mind and then I save the draft. I go back to it. I delete anything that is not the most essential fact.
That is
So
a very good practice. And that is something that I teach my clients too, or even just put it in your phone notes. If you think you're going to send that text or whatever, just put it in your phone notes and leave it. And then you'll notice either it goes away, the need to send it, or like you said, you take 70% of it out and it's 2 lines.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Usually if it's anything to do with feelings, just get it out of there.
Exactly. Like, yeah, so you think, and all this kind of stuff. So if I'm understanding correctly and all of it, I just delete in the middle of the night. That's what you'll find me doing sometimes.
But that's really good, right? Because we get out of the pattern of over explaining,
Yeah.
putting our feelings into it and all that. You just need to make it a business communication like you would with someone as a coworker or something. Just keep it very, very business-like. It will save you. So as we're wrapping up, you did sort of mention, what you'd say to women that you were 100% sure that you were not going to be able to get out. So if there's a woman out there listening to this, she, most of the women I work with they have careers, good jobs. They love their career life. They have kids, they've got things going for them, but they feel like this particular relationship is it's the thing that's weighing them down.
Mhm.
So what would you say to a woman that's feeling like you were, feeling like there's no way I can get out of this?
I would say, I would tell them to think about, if they've ever had surgery or like someone they know has had surgery, and it's like it's a scary procedure. And sometimes after the surgery, it feels worse for a little while. But then, maybe like 5 months later, you're like, oh wow, like my knee works again. And I didn't even know I noticed I was skipping. It's kind of like that. So you have to think further down the road than the immediate misery. And that's worth it. And to just be like, this is going to suck and it is going to be painful. I'm going into some emotional surgery. My body's going to go haywire. Everything's going to get kicked up, but I'm going to heal and it's going to be better later.
I love that. And you just, as you're saying that, I recall you did have your back went out during all this too.
Oh yeah. I was on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. This is common. Again, this is what I see with women is they're literally trying to get out. So they'll get really sick or keep getting really sick or like back pain or whatever, something, right? A lot of times it's resistance and the fear, you got to push through it, but it's like your body's like, okay, I'm done. Like we're done.
Yeah, we're done here. I had to phone a friend and was like, I'm literally on the floor.
Oh my God.
I need you to like pick me up. And I had to coach my son how to get on a chair and unlock the door from the floor. But we got through it.
Now, and is that not a metaphor, right? I'm on the floor, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good friend.
That is a good friend to peel you up off the floor. Yeah. Yeah.
And a strong friend. And she was physically strong as well.
Oh man, if that's not, and how's your back now? Any more issues?
That's perfectly fine.
Okay, excellent. See, this is the thing, like, you know, when you're in it, you don't believe why, like what's actually happening. It's like all the years of the trauma and everything you've pushed down, it came out through your back and you're releasing it. You're keep moving forward, even though you're terrified. And so that's how it showed up for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could have taken any number of vitamins or gone to the gym or done anything and it wouldn't have changed my days because my relationship cast a shadow on everything. It was like a gloom cloud. But now I feel like, oh, my vitamins and my exercise and all those things are not just money down the drain. Like there will be something to show for it. And that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, I can totally relate on that one. Yeah, it's like the things that you've been doing all along to feel better are actually working because the problem is gone.
Yeah.
The root cause.
Yep. That's the truth.
Oh, well, I am so happy that you were able to come out of it and that things are moving along. It can be a long road. So that's why I think it's important to just speak about the reality of it, that there is beauty and you'd never go back to it again, but there's also hardship in it. And it really is important to have the right support.
Yeah. And thank you so much for just all of your offerings for women who might not have the, budget for everything. That's how I found you, was just listening to podcasts and that started to change my thinking. And so that's such a gift. So.
Yes. And that's why I love having women on that have gone through it, because I think some women that are in it need to hear the words from other women. So thank you so much for coming on. I do appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And I'll chat with you soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. If you love this episode, please take a moment to share it and leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're ready to take your next step, head to the link in the show notes to sign up for my latest free class. Also, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Awakening Women Official and join the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you again in the next episode. Take care of yourself in the meantime, and I'll see you online.
Join us today during the Jeep Celebration event. Right now, get 20% below MSRP for an average of $15,178 under MSRP on the purchase of a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xE or Summit 4xE. Not compatible with lease offers or with any other consumer incentive offers. $15,178 average based on 20% below average MSRP from all 2023 Grand Cherokee Overland 4xE and Summit 4xE models in dealer stock. Residency restrictions apply. Take retail delivery from dealer stock by 4/1. Jeep is a registered trademark.